The Knicks are 4-6 in their last 10 games, 11th place in the East, 3 games under 500. So sub for Knicks dubs. We need some good vibes going. I'm not saying every sub we get from this video equals a win, but it doesn't hurt. So sub for Knicks dubs because we need to get back in the playoffs and we need some damn wins back in the win column. So sub for Knicks dubs. What's going on, Knicks fans? You are watching New York Knicks Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green, and we have some interesting stuff to get into. Following the last night's blowout against the Miami Heat, Jeff Van Gundy, he ripped the Knicks throughout the entire broadcast. He did speak highly of the second unit, which all season, besides R.J. Barrett's January stretch, has probably been the bright spot of the season. But first, I want to talk about what Van Gundy had to say about Julius Randle and the struggling season he's had so far. As much as it's a shooting issue, it's also an energy issue. You got to look at the best player, and you've got to see through action and body language and an absolute unquenched desire to win. You've got to have that. People have to feed off of that. And I agree with Van Gundy. The last 10 games, Randle, he has looked like a fraction of the player that we saw last year when he was an all-NBA player. He's been bad, just bad at shooting the ball. 37% from the field, 24% from three in the last 10 games. But like Van Gundy said, it's not just the shooting that is holding him back from being the leader of this Knicks team. It's the effort. It's him being a bad teammate, which we'll show in just a quick second. It's the lack of energy on defense. He doesn't box out, and all of his stats have suffered this season. Last season, he was one of the best players in the NBA. Averaged 24 points per game, shot over 45% from the field, over 41% from three, and 81% from the free throw line. That's when the Knicks gave him the bag this summer. And I didn't think the shooting numbers would be sustainable for Julius Randle because I think he's closer to the player that we're seeing this year than he was last year. I didn't think he'd ever be a 40% career shooter from three, but could he be a 36, a 37% shooter, a 44% shooter from the field, a 20 points per game guy? That's where I thought he was closer to, but he has just not lived up to the contract he's gotten. And it's stuff like this that pisses me off. When you look at Julius Randle, right here, let me see if I can get a little closer, right about here. That's Julius Randle. This is last night against the Heat. Where's the rest of the team? They're in the huddle, listening to Tom Thibodeau speak and taking his coaching. Julius Randle has been babied and pampered by the New York Knicks since last season. They rarely make him available for media sessions after the game. They pay his fines when he doesn't show up, and Tom Thibodeau only speaks positively about Julius Randle. Remember back earlier this season when Thibodeau shredded R.J. Barrett and said his shooting numbers were a direct correlation because he hasn't been in the gym, he hasn't been staying late, he hasn't been coming to get an extra shots? He never says anything about Julius Randle besides, yeah, this is our engine. We rely on Julius Randle. He does this, he does that. I am sick and tired of Julius Randle, and I think it's time the Knicks start to look at trades and ways that the New York Knicks can trade Julius Randle. The NBA trade deadline is February 10th, but because Julius Randle signed that massive contract extension before this season, the Knicks, they can't trade him until February 6th, but that doesn't mean they can't start making calls and listening to calls. If you can trade Julius Randle for a point guard, maybe like De'Aaron Fox or a guy like DeJounte Murray, there's rumors coming out about that. I think you have to think about it because I don't believe that Julius Randle can be a first or second option on a winning team, and he just doesn't bleed the Knicks blue and orange that we need him to. He doesn't rely on that Knicks culture. He's not a good teammate, and his effort is bad. When he's not shooting the ball well, he is a negative player on the court. That's my spiel on Randle, but let me know yours. Should the Knicks trade Julius Randle? Remember, they can't do it until February 6th, just 4 days before the NBA trade deadline, so they'll have to start making calls now. But type T for trade or type K for keep regarding Julius Randle. Jeff Van Gundy, he also had some other choice words and kind of talked a little bit of crap about his buddy and best friend, Tom Thibodeau. This is what he had to say. The starting lineup, they need just major changes. They don't bring it on a nightly basis. I'm talking the starting unit. There's been plenty of times throughout the year to show that they work well together. I just don't know how they can continue on like this. That's the definition of insanity, is seeing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different results. And Fred Katz, he put this tweet out last night, and I think these numbers say everything you need to know about the New York Knicks starting fives. Tibbs rolled with the starters for 6+ minutes as the Heat went up 26. Kemba, Evan, RJ, Julius, and Mitch. That lineup is minus 11.5 per 100 possessions on the season, but has also played the third most minutes of any lineup in the NBA. So it's no longer a chemistry thing. It's no longer these guys need to work out the kinks. They need to be on the court together more. The chemistry is not there. This says it right here. They've played some of the most minutes of any starting lineup in the NBA. Something has to change, and that falls on Tom Thibodeau. You can't just keep rolling out this same starting five or throwing in Alec Burks for Kemba Walker and hoping things will change. This starting five has problems, and it's not just Kemba Walker's fault. When he was benched and taken out of the lineup, things really didn't all change that much. I'm not saying you bench Julius or you bench RJ Barrett, who has had a good January, but things need to change. Maybe you throw in an energy guy like Deuce McBride to be the starting point guard, someone that can defend the ball. That's another thing Jeff Van Gundy talked about. He talked about the Knicks have nobody besides Quentin Grimes and Deuce McBride that can be good on-ball defenders. This roster is very flawed, and I think it's starting to ramp the heat up on Tom Thibodeau's seat. But I think right now, with the NBA trade deadline just around the corner, the Knicks need to make a trade. They need to decide, do they want to try to make the playoffs? I don't think they'll ever get back to that number 4 seed like they were last year, but if they want to try to make the playoffs and be relevant again, I think they got to make a trade. What about you? Type Y for yes or type N for no. I did some research this morning on some Tom Thibodeau stuff, and I saw a couple articles, and a couple people had a sit-down interview, and they did a podcast with him, and that was Howard Beck. He talked about Tom Thibodeau in the hot seat, and I think right now with the Knicks struggling and out of the playoffs, under 500, past the halfway point of the NBA season, you got to start talking about Tom Thibodeau and if he is the coach for the New York Knicks in the future. This is what Howard had to say. They are a team now that doesn't have a clear direction or a clear franchise star. And the win now approach that Tibbs has brought to the Knicks has gotten to a point where they aren't even winning now. They keep chasing the quick fix. They are still just trying to make the playoffs. And this is my thing. You brought Tibbs in to win now, to bring respect back to the Garden, to bring energy back to MSG. And he did that last year, but they overachieved. They weren't the fourth best team in the East, and that showed in the playoff series against the Atlanta Hawks. Something has to change. Tom Thibodeau can't keep out just trotting out Alec Burks and Taj Gibson and hoping a 33-year-old Derrick Rose comes back from ankle surgery is going to save this season. It's time to pull the plug on the veterans. Let guys like RJ Barrett continue to play the majority of the minutes. Let Quickly maybe get into the starting lineups. Play Deuce McBride more. Quentin Grimes should be playing 25 minutes a game. Obi Toppin, he should also be playing 25 minutes a game. Guys like Alec Burks, Taj Gibson, and the other vets on this team like Kemba Walker, we have seen that they are not going to get this team to where they need to be. Pull the plug, start the youth movement, and let this team rebuild and finally retool and stop chasing the quick fix. I'm just not sure if Tom Thibodeau is the guy that's going to be able to get the most out of the young players. The thing about Tom Thibodeau is this. You brought him in to win now, coach defense, and get maximum effort. And this year, the Knicks have not done any of the three. And their offense in the fourth quarter, I don't even want to talk about it because it makes my stomach hurt. But be the judge. How hot is Tibbs' seat? Scale it from 0 to 10. 0 being it's not hot at all. He just won Coach of the Year last year. Or 10 being they need to start looking at coaching candidates because next season I doubt it'll be Tom Thibodeau. Jeff Van Gundy, he also talked about the second unit. And if you've been watching Knicks games this season, the only bright spot on this team is the second unit. How many times have we seen the second unit, led by Emmanuel Quickly or Obi Toppin or Quentin Grimes, come in and save the day and trim the double-digit lead that the starters dug the hole in? I liked what Van Gundy had to say about the second unit. He said this: they play hard. They share the ball. The ball doesn't go in enough right now, but they're enjoyable because their level of competitiveness and unselfishness is so much greater than the starting unit, playing excellent basketball. And that's 100% the case. They put that unit, that second unit, they play for one another. When you watch the starters, do you ever just kick back and say, do these guys even like each other? Julius Randle is a me player, and I understand that's worked for him last year with the ISO mid-range shot that he hit at an exceptional clip. But that's not something that's going to roll over every single night. The second unit is the driving horse behind this team, and that just cannot be the case for a successful NBA team. Jeff Van Gundy called Quentin Grimes his favorite Knick, and right now he's at the top of my list. What he does every single night is bring energy and shot making from beyond the arc. The fact he's shooting 40% from behind the three-point line as a rookie is tremendous. He's played in just 31 games, and he averages in those 31 games 15 minutes per night, just 5.5 points per game because he's not really asked to do that much. He's really just a catch-and-shoot type of guy, but his effective field goal percentage right now is almost 57%, and like I said, he's converting on 40% of his three-point shots. Was a great draft pick by Leon Rose, and I would love to see him get more minutes as the season comes to an end. Should the Knicks start the youth movement? Is it time for Quentin Grimes to play 30 minutes a night? Should Obi Toppin be a focal point on this team? Do guys like Emmanuel Quickley and Deuce McBride deserve more minutes? If you think the Knicks should start the youth movement, type Y for youth or type E for keep the vets and play the experienced players. And if you're looking for someone on Twitter to follow that live tweets all Knicks games, all Knicks news and rumors I'm tweeting about, hit me up on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_. I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers. And if you let me know that you came from this video, I will follow you back. So hit me up at @MarshallGreen_.